conflict when there's a problem? How do you resolve that conflict? If you have disagreement with your teammate say, let's do A, you want us to do B. You need to know how to resolve that conflict of listening to the other person and then understanding their concern, whatever they're saying, then before you can actually uh, bring your input. And then try to come to a common solution. And the common solution is a common goal that is in line with the company or your project um, target. So everything has to go in line. You need to learn how to deal with hard conversations. So hard conversations, if you disagree with somebody, how do you also, it also relates to conflict resolution. You need to have emotional intelligence. So there's emotional intelligence, there's artificial intelligence. And we engineers, normally, as I mentioned, we care so much about technical stuff. They are all good, but emotional intelligence is also how you deal with people. Remember, human beings, we are the most difficult and complex to deal with. We are very difficult people. It's easier to operate a machine. You just press something or type in start, you start. If you say stop, the machine will stop. But human beings are not like that. We also need to learn organization. So organization is a very key skill. You may have let's say 5 projects in a week, but how do you organize yourself to prioritize which one is more important, and the ones that are not very urgent and important, you can delegate it to someone else. And even the way you arrange your stuff, your project folders, or how you arrange your document also is helpful. It's just like when you pick your cloth, you know where to put your shoe, you know where to put your cloth. You know where to, if you have children, you know where to put your children cloth. You don't just mix everything up. So organization is also very important. You want to go into a company with a very organized mindset. If you are having softwares, you put all software, let's say all power system softwares in one folder. And in each of the folders, you categorize them. If you have drawing stuff, that's AutoCAD or other drawing stuff, you put them in a separate folder. That's organization. We also need to focus on taking initiatives. So taking initiative actually is one of the most important things. You don't want your boss or people to be telling you to do everything. You want to be in a position that you can actually start something and then communicate that to your boss that this is what you are doing. You need to initiate something different. Like you need to be innovative, bring new ideas without necessarily being told to do things. So, in short, technical skills are important, and then soft skills are super important. Okay, so here we have the theory and then practice. I did mention this earlier on. In school, I just put this basic formula here just to explain. We learn a whole lot of formulas, everything about power, voltage, current, resistance, circuit theory, and all those things. How are they actually applicable in the industry? In reality, they are applicable. As at now, even if you work in the industry for 30 years, you will still use the theory that you studied in school. All the formulas, we use that in calculating load flow, short circuit analysis, and arc flash studies. They are all applicable in the industry. So don't leave anything. If you don't have to memorize them, you just need to know that this formula is here and the formula is applicable to solve this particular problem. And you would actually enjoy it when you start working, because in school everything is just writing and learning to write an exam. But in the industry, you are not actually learning to write an exam. You are actually practicing to solve problems. If there's less demand, let's say we take the customers, the electrical users are the demand, and then the power generation is the supply. If there's less demand on generation, right? what will happen is that then you have the generation. If you are using synchronous generators, the power plant machines will begin to run very fast because the frequency will go up higher than the nominal. If you are in Sri Lanka, I'm sure you are using 50 hertz. So 50 hertz system, if frequency is higher, it means that we have less demand. Less people are using electricity at that time. So the machines will begin to run faster. What do you do to mitigate that problem? But beyond some level, you have the generator to trip. Because if it runs faster, what happens is that the generators will begin to vibrate, and with vibrations you can break some mechanical parts. So you will learn this in school: frequency, demand, generation and supply, power generation and supply and demand. Under normal circumstances, generation should be equal to demand, but this is not going to be the situation. There's always some kind of variation. People are always switching off and switching on their power supply. Factories may be working on high or low. So because of that, there will be some kind of variations. And this is where you actually apply. Most of them in the industry, you don't sit down to write or calculate on a paper. It has actually been replicated in a software or a program, but you need to know how to use the software. You need to know how to use the software, but if you don't have the theory, then it becomes difficult to use the software. So there's a relationship between theory and practice. Whatever we learn is actually applicable on a different level and on a practical level, which is the reality. Okay, now how do we bridge the gap between theory, right, between school and then the industry? First of all, I mentioned earlier on, you need to be very intentional. When I started, I mentioned some of the failures I did in my career. When I started, I was not writing anything down. I was not taking inventory of my skills. I was not intentional. I left my career for other people to decide for me. So leaving your career for other people to decide is a dangerous thing, and you don't want to leave anything for somebody to decide. Somebody will have a decision to make about your career, but what I'm talking about here is that you need to actually have a plan how you want to develop yourself. You need to write your plan down. In the next 2 years, where do you want to see yourself? In the next 5 years, where do you want to see yourself? And how much salary you want to actually make. And I have done this. Once I learned and I knew about this, I have actually put this into practice. Whatever I wrote down, that in this time, I want to get to this level, I want to get this salary. Exactly the same thing happened. It just worked to me like as if it's a magic. And so I know that thing really works. You need to be intentional. You need to design your career by breaking it down into pieces. It can be 2 years or 5 years and 10 years, 15 years. What do you want to do? How much money do you want to make? Write it down. Once you write it down, your mind will now force you. Your mind will now conscientize you to work on that. You need to identify your interest. Do you want to go into oil and gas or manufacturing, or you want to go into power companies, or you want to go into telecommunication? Whatever you want to do, you need to actually have that interest. And you need to write your skills. As I mentioned, take inventory of your skills. Even as at me, I always I have set an alarm every Friday, every weekend. I need to actually write my skills down. What am I good at? What am I lacking? I write it down and I try to close the gap by taking what? If I find some gap, then I try to take some training. You can pay for your own training or recommend to your boss or your supervisor that I think I need to take this training to help me to perform better in my work. So take inventory of your skills, write it down and identify the gaps. When you are a student and about to graduate, you need to take internships even before graduation.